Hi guys, this is Pastor Andy here again. It's Monday, April 6th, and just wanting to stay connected with you, and especially this week. This week is Holy Week. I hope you were able to watch our service yesterday. We celebrated Palm Sunday, which celebrates the triumphal entry of Jesus going into Jerusalem. A very dramatic situation where he was proclaiming himself king, allowing the people around him to do that as well. And, we talked about the drama that was going on between him and the Jewish leadership at the time and how, they were refusing to accept who he was. And was coming out, for the first time and just really declaring, that he is king. He is the Son of God. He's the Son of Man. He's the Son of David. He's the Messiah. All these things were incredible in terms of their implications as to what Jesus was saying and what it means for us, of course, today. And as I suggested yesterday, there's so much that's going on this week in Jesus's life, this Holy Week, this last week of his life as a man on earth. And so this week, I'm going to, hopefully, God willing, post something every day just to take a closer look at some of the things that were going on and maybe give us a greater appreciation for, what Jesus did, what he was trying to say, and what those things might mean to us. So, if you've got your Bibles, I'm going to be looking at Mark's Gospel today to unpack a few of these things and just help us to, like I say, understand what Jesus was really about that week. Remember yesterday I said that the big question that's hanging in the air is, who is this guy? Who is this Jesus that's coming into Nazareth? And many people, the Pharisees were asking, the people that were coming in as guests. Remember, it was a big Passover celebration, so lots of people were traveling to Jerusalem for this high celebration time of the year. Maybe they'd heard about Jesus but never seen him, and they're wondering, what's going on. The fact that he's riding in on a donkey, which indicates by prophecy that he is actually declaring himself king. That was the way Zechariah said that, behold, Jerusalem, daughter of Zion, your king is going to come riding in on a donkey. And so, that was a momentous thing. But today I just want to try to weave a little bit more of the story. And I want you to see just how Jesus is masterfully kind of claiming what's his. That's the theme I want to talk about today. And there's three different things that happened or that he said that during this week that are recorded by all three of the synoptic gospels. And so I think they're significant. They were in there for a reason. And so I just want us to kind of, like I say, take a look at it and see if we can have a greater understanding. Okay. So in the Gospel of Mark, we're reading that Jesus is going into town, like I said, and in Mark's gospel, it's a little bit different than the other ones, but they come across a fig tree. And it's just really interesting. Mark says in chapter 11, verse 12, that the next day they were leaving Bethany, and Jesus was hungry, and seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went out to find if it had any fruit. And when he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. No, then he goes on and says, then he said to the tree, may no one ever eat fruit from you again. And his disciples heard him say this. So this is a very interesting scenario because Jesus is hungry, it says, but he goes to a fig tree. It's springtime. It's not time for figs. And yet he curses the fig tree. Why would he do that? Have you ever asked the question, why would he do that? Later on, we pick up the story a few verses later. In fact, it says in the morning the next day, they went, this is verse 20, they went along and saw the fig tree withered from its roots. Peter looked to Jesus and he said, Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered. And then we have, Jesus goes on to say, have faith in God. I tell you the truth, if anyone says to this mountain, go throw yourself in the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes what he says will happen, it will be done for him. So Jesus, after cursing the fig tree, makes this really powerful statement about that what we say matters and that we actually have the power and the authority to speak to mountains and move them. I'm not going to address that part of the story. I'm not sure obviously that was an important statement, but I think there was something else going on that I want to pull out here this week. Um, the withered fig tree, or the cursing of the fig tree, is actually a very prophetic thing and a very big statement. Remember this dialogue, this battle, if you will, that's going on between Jesus and the Pharisees. Um, it's about, who the Jews were, who they were expecting the Messiah to be. The Jewish leaders were expecting the Messiah to come and vindicate them as Jews and to kick out the Romans and to put them in power. It wasn't so that they would, have to be, become humble and so on and so forth, but so that they could come in power. And Jesus' whole ministry, his whole life was one that was a threat to them. Okay, but on the flip side, the Jewish leaders were responsible for leading God's people. And Jesus is very jealous of his people, and he's very jealous of the relationship with his people. And so the leaders actually have a tremendous responsibility to make sure that the people are being responded to by, uh, what God is doing to them, and or for them, and what the Pharisees are blocking or keeping from happening. And so what we find here is Jesus going to the fig tree is actually a parable of the relationship with Israel and with the leaders in particular. So what do you think it means to go to a tree that is still early spring and to expect fruit? Well, I want you to consider that who made the tree? Jesus, the Creator, made the tree, right? And so as he looks for food, he's saying he's hungry and he's looking for food. He's going to the fig tree. It's too early to be normally producing fruit. But in the power of God, we should be able to produce fruit at any time, right? So that's one application, but I want you to consider this. I want you to consider that, what happens if a child, if we have babies and, we expect them to grow up, right? We don't expect a 5-year-old to still be in diapers and crawling on the floor. We expect a 5-year-old, I have a 5-year-old grandson, so I know this. We expect a 5-year-old, child to be up and running and energetic and doing kind of things. And then we expect an 18-year-old to be taking responsibility, be driving and getting a job and so on and so forth. And so there are many things that we have, expectations for based on the age or the season of a person's life. And what's happening here in this picture, I believe, is that Jesus is going to the fig tree to inspect it, and not because it's spring is he saying it should have fruit, but because it is a parable. He is saying to Israel, listen, you have been my people for 1,500 years, and you have not produced fruits of righteousness. You are still not representing me well to the world. And so Jesus curses the fig tree, not because he's really angry with the fig tree for not giving him figs in the spring, but because he is saying that Israel, you have not given me the fruit that I expected. You have not delivered me what I created you for. So he is saying, as your creator, I created you to produce fruit. You have not been keeping fruit. So this is one of the lessons, one of the things in this story. And then he goes on to go into the temple. And the temple, of course, is extremely important in the Jewish economy, and what Jesus is doing and wants to do, not only in that moment, but what the temple was there in order for the people to meet with God. If you remember in Exodus 25:8, when the temple was first designed, when the sanctuary, the mobile sanctuary, was given to Moses, he said, let them make me a sanctuary that I might dwell among them. And so the whole purpose of the temple was for God to dwell with his people. And if, you've heard me speak, or if you read my book, you'll find that the temple is one of the major themes in all of Scripture, because the temple is that place where Jesus said that he wants to be able to dwell with his people. And vice versa, the temple is the place where people should be able to go to meet with God. Well, imagine God in Jesus' form coming to the temple and seeing, instead of a place where people are able to pray and worship and kind of be in the presence of God, instead he's finding money changers and animals in the courtyard, and they're doing business so that the presence of God and people meeting God in that environment is absolutely, impossible. It's too busy. It's commercial. It's people are going around doing this, that, and the other thing, everything but talking to God and meeting God. Even though it's all for the sacrifices, they can't seem to, if you were to go there, you would not find peace. You would not be able to go and like, oh yes, God, thank you for meeting me here. No, it would be disruptive. It would be something very unpeaceful. In fact, you'd be anxious, like, what are they going to do to the lamb that I brought to worship and so forth? So Jesus enters into this space and he gets very angry. Have you ever wondered why, just exactly why Jesus got so angry? Um, with the situation in the temple. It wasn't just the fact that they were doing business in the temple. I believe it was because the very place that he had intended for his people and any people to come and actually have intimate contact with him was the temple. And this was interfering with that. So, as a very jealous father, as a very jealous God, he gets upset and cleans out the table, cleans out all the commercial aspects of it so that people would be able to have peace and meet with him. And you know what the interesting thing is? It says that for the rest of the week, every day he was in the temple teaching. Isn't that amazing? So he then sets it up so that he is actually using the temple for its very purpose, that he is meeting the people there and they are meeting him there. So God is able to be with his people in the temple. That was his design all the time. Since the beginning of mankind, it was God's design to dwell with us. And Jesus came to demonstrate that. And he shows this by going into the temple and says, my house shall not be a den of thieves, but my house will be called a house of prayer. So restoring it to its proper order, even though the temple services and everything were soon to be done away with, it was important that Jesus established this relationship with the temple. All right, hang in with me one more time. We're going to look at one more teaching or incident that actually occurred in this Holy Week that I think is extremely profound. So every synoptic gospel, and the synoptic gospels, by the way, are Matthew, Mark, and Luke. They all have very similar stories. They all have many of the same stories. And so in the gospels, we have this incident that comes up where the Pharisees, once again trying to trick Jesus, they come to him and they ask him, listen, are we supposed to pay taxes to Caesar? Well, now Jesus knew what they were up to. Jesus was, of course, extremely smart. He was always catching them in their attempts to trap him. And so, they come asking him if it's lawful, because the Pharisees were also trying to get him in trouble with the Romans. And, they were trying to show him that he was unfaithful to the Romans, that he was trying to do a revolt or something. So they come asking him if they should pay tax to Caesar, which was a loaded question. Most Jews at that time, hated the Romans and didn't want to pay taxes to the Romans, felt like they should never have to do that. And so Jesus masterfully handles this question by saying, come, give me a coin, show me a coin. And so they show him a coin, a Roman coin. And Jesus asks the simple questions. And he says, show me whose picture is on the face of the coin. And of course they answer, well, it's Caesar's. And Jesus says, well, then give to Caesar's what is Caesar's, right? Man, what a masterful answer. So if Caesar has the authority to print his image on the coin, then that belongs to him, right? So Jesus is showing how, governmental authority and the authority of, any king or so on and so forth is to stamp his image on his property. Okay, you got that? So a ruler passes on his image or puts his image on something that is his, right? And so he's saying, though, of course, you would give back to Caesar what is Caesar. So if Caesar has the authority to print these coins, then yes, you need to honor him by saying, yes, this is your authority, this is your money, so we're going to give you the portion that you asked back. But I think what's really interesting, and I think what is amazing about this story, and Jesus as a teacher is just so profound, that I think the hidden story is that when Jesus says, render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's, what is he saying? Okay. Where is God's image printed? Have you thought about that? God's image is printed on us. We are made in his image. And so Jesus is saying, and remember, he's claiming to be king. He's claiming to be God this whole week. He's like, come out and say, I'm it. I'm the Messiah. I'm son of David. I'm God. And so when in the middle of this week, this battle is going on between him and the Pharisees, he says to them, yes, you can give to Caesar what is Caesar, but give to me what is mine. And what's his? Us. We are, mankind. And particularly the Jews, because the Jews are his treasured possession. And so Jesus, again, masterfully declares who he is. He's king, he's God. You are made in my image, therefore you belong to me. You owe your tax of yourself to me. Isn't that amazing? Such a profound teaching that Jesus just weaves right in here. And it's in this battle of what is going on between Jesus and the Pharisees, of who are you, Jesus? What are you saying about yourself? And Jesus is saying that he is their creator. He created that fig tree that he cursed. And so even though he's looking for figs when it's spring, he has the right to do that because he's their creator. And he's expecting fruit, not because it's spring for the fig tree, but because they have been his people for 1,500 years, and they should be producing righteousness by now. They should be producing disciples. They should be a light to the Gentiles, and the whole world should be coming to them for the truth of God. But they're not, so there's no fruit on the fig tree, not the literal fig tree. He curses that as a parable for the curse that's coming on the people of Israel because of their failure to produce fruit. And then he goes in the temple and he declares that the temple is his, and he clears out all the commerce, all the people that are doing the temple business, but it's not his business. And he's saying, my house will be a house of prayer. My house. And my house, like we said earlier, is a place for him to meet. He says in Exodus 25, verse 8, he says, let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. The temple was God's place for him to meet with his people and for his people to meet with him. And so he comes in and cleans it out. He's jealous for his people. He loves them so much and wants that intimate fellowship with him. And then for the rest of the week, he's in there teaching every day so that he can connect with his people. And then we have this controversy, this last conflict, if you will, over taxes to Caesar. And Jesus turns this into a masterful statement of his ownership of the human race by saying, render unto Caesar's what is Caesar, and unto God what is God's, by saying, if you see Caesar's image on the coin, well, then you know it belongs to Caesar. But if you see God's image somewhere, then who does that belong to? It belongs to God because it's his image. That's his property. He created it. He has the right to claim it back. He has the right to the tax of honor and praise and worship. So again, Holy Week, Jesus last week on earth, some really profound teachings and things like that. I hope you continue to kind of watch for the videos this week we're going to be posting and just trying to help you kind of zoom in, if you will, to some of the masterful teachings that Jesus has conducted this week as he heads towards the cross, as we watch this battle between him and the Pharisees heat up. And we are, just going to be watching from the sidelines and learning as much as we can. So thanks for watching. I hope you share this video with your friends, and let's let other people know just everything that God has done for you, and just share the video. Thank you, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Martha. Those of you who are watching. And so love you guys, and happy Holy Week. I hope you're just diving into God's Word. I hope you're loving your family and just enjoying the sheltering that we're in. And send some love to somebody, connect with them, reach out, and bless somebody today, okay, because of everything that Jesus has done for you. I love you guys, and we'll talk again tomorrow. All right. God bless.